Hi, I'm Brynn Patton. Welcome to the Exhaust Note podcast. And today I'm here with John Kenney, the owner of a Ferrari 250 GTE. So John, tell us a bit about your car.
Well, she's the family queen, I guess. She's been in the family since 1964, and my wife and I really took the ownership in about 1984. But she's a member of the family. She's moved all over the country with us, and had a couple of long naps along the way while our son went racing and made it to Europe and at the doorsteps with Formula 3. So she's endured a lot, but she's a family member. We treat her that way, so we're happy to have her. And as some of the records show, we're in theory the longest ownership of any Ferrari 250 GTE in the world.
Wow, that's a very impressive record.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes against all odds, we kept moving ahead, um, and she's got a good history. We've been able to uncover that history, especially over the last few years. I'll say since about 2017, 2018, when I connected with the Ferrari 250 GTE registry and met a wonderful fellow there, David Wheeler, and joined the registry. He's been very good help in unlocking a lot of specific things that we didn't know. My wife's dad bought the car from Garage Francorchamps in 1964 as a used car, and that started its life as the family Ferrari because my wife grew up along with her two sisters riding around Europe, going to school, going to the grocery store. Even on one occasion went to Switzerland and went camping with her camping gear in the back of the car. But David has been instrumental in getting some of the specifics. We have pictures of the car as the 1961 Brussels show car for Garage Francorchamps. We know with certainty now it is the 23rd car produced. We know for certain it has only had one other owner, and that is a fellow by the name of George Jojo Berger. And that's significant because George was a Ferrari factory driver driving for the Belgian national team under the Garage Francorchamps flag. And Jacques Swatters was the importer for Ferraris and managed the Belgian team. He used that car as his car, and he's the only other owner of the car that is known and by any records that we can find. So essentially, the car's a two-owner car, and it's been passed through our family now since 1964. So we love her, and I see her every day out in the garage.
For people who might not be very familiar with vintage Ferraris, describe the 250 GTE.
Well, the 250 GTE came about because Enzo's passion was racing, and he produced two-seat sports cars, a number of them for the street, but they were a lot of them raced. They were dual use. They could be used on street or they would be raced in different events. The GTE was, I guess, created to have a car that he could, quote unquote, mass produce. So it's almost laughable by today's numbers, but over 4 years, there were about 900, slightly over 900 GTEs made. And the significance was it was a four-place car. So it competed against Aston Martins, it competed against Jaguars in the marketplace that for folks that wanted a GT car to use, but they may have kids. So the car has two small jump seats in the back, And we always laugh about that. And as you were able to see, Brynn, that the car has a hump in the back. And my wife had two sisters. So the family car, the older girls got the seats, and she sat on the hump in the back and went to school, went on trips and things like that. And that was what made it a family Ferrari. But that created the revenue and things that allowed Enzo to race and things like that. So at that point was, I believe, the largest mass production Ferrari that existed. The unusual thing about it is they didn't create a new chassis, a new engine, and things like that for that car. They used the same chassis that we used under the two-seat sports cars, and they rearranged some things on there. They moved the engine slightly forward and made some other adjustments in the chassis so that Pininfarina could create a rear footwell and a place for the two small seats in the back. So underneath, the car is essentially the same car as a lot of the mega dollar two-seat sports cars, but they put a different carburation on it, different cams. Pininfarina designed the body to fit on that chassis with the back seats integrated into the design, and kept kind of the sloping back and a two-door configuration. So it was truly a GT car made that you could carry your family members.
Wow. And for our viewers, we met John at the Hilton Head Concours d'Elegance, where he had his beautiful Ferrari on display. It can be easily described as a late 50s Corvette with more cylinders, seats, and curves.
Well, what's funny in Germany, when my father-in-law brought the car back from Garage Francorchamps, and he was there, Jerry Matthews was his name. He had been racing BMWs, and he happened to ball up his BMW and put it on its roof at the Nürburgring, and came home without his BMW. And my mother-in-law, and they've both passed now, but he came home and she said, "That's it for your racing. You have three little girls. You have to find a car that you can take the family with." And he went to Garage Francorchamps, and he was torn in the showroom. This car was sitting next to a Mercedes Gullwing, and he really wanted the Gullwing. They were both used cars at that point. And, the mother-in-law said, "You have three girls. There's no place in a Gullwing, so pick the Ferrari." So he came home with a Ferrari. But the funny thing is, he showed up at Ramstein Air Base with the Ferrari, and largely Americans there on the base. And he said many times people would stop him and ask him if that was the new Mustang, because it had a horse in the grill. And he said more than once he had to explain that no, it's not a Mustang, it's actually a Ferrari. So that was kind of a funny bit of history with the car when they took it back to Germany, and there just weren't many of these cars around, and this was the 23rd car made. So there were probably less than 100 on the road anywhere in the world, when that car was seen in 1964, as a used car.
So when we met you at Hilton Head, you had a brochure in the trunk of your car that was official Ferrari, right?
Yeah, we have. Well, over the years, we've collected a lot of the pieces of ephemera, if you will, that went with the car. So we have an original sales brochure from the showroom. The one we have is in English. Strangely enough, I bought it in Brussels when my wife had visited. We used to go there pretty frequently. but found it in the museum gift store in the Brussels Auto Museum. So we have that. We also have the 1961 Ferrari yearbook, and the car is pictured, I think, page 3 or page 4 in the yearbook, because it's a very, very early car. And it shows the car with Jacques Waters and on the Brussels show stand. So we know through all the Pininfarina records, we know from Ferrari records that that car is the one in the brochure. So we have early pieces of documentation and pictures of the car from sales brochures or the 1961 Ferrari the official yearbook from Ferrari.
Great. I would imagine it would be hard to collect all these pieces of memorabilia.
Yeah, I guess always have, and as we've talked a little bit, I always have my eye out for Automobilia. I have a weakness for that. Posters, as you can see behind me, diecast cars. So I have some diecast cars from a 250 GTE, but it just always being on the lookout for it. And like I said, the brochure that I picked up in Brussels, I was actually looking at die-cast cars, and the fellow in the museum gift shop there said, do you have an interest in a particular car? And I told him a little bit about the story, and he said, oh, let me go in the back. And he brought out a plastic bin full of Ferrari literature. And he said, I think I have one in English for a Ferrari GTE. So he pulled it out, is absolutely pristine. I said, pack it away. I'm taking it home. So that's how I found that piece. And oddly enough, the 61 Ferrari yearbook I found on eBay. I have just a search engine for Ferrari GTE. And strangely enough, that yearbook came up, and in the eBay little pictures they give you, lo and behold, was page 3 or 4, and that car in it highlighted the serial number of the car as a Brussels show stand car. So we now have the picture from Marcel Massini that goes with that. We have the Ferrari yearbook. We have the brochure. So it's been fun, but always keeping an eye out for the things that go with the car. And we found some interesting pieces in various places we've traveled.
What, for you, has been the coolest part about owning such a car?
That's an interesting question. The most interesting thing, I think, comes with the story of getting the car and making it run for the first time. And I think we talked a little bit about at Hilton Head when my wife and I took over the car. I was in the military and stationed at the Pentagon, and the car had been in Texas in boxes. My father-in-law, and I know we talked at Hilton Head, and I'll try to relay that story. But the first time my friend Michael Yunt and I had worked, we actually went to Sears and got metric tools to work on it because it arrived in boxes. Through friends I had at the Pentagon, we got the Italian embassy to translate the only manual we had on the car, translated into English, and we worked and rebuilt carburetors and fiddled with distributors and replaced spark plugs and did all the things you would to a car that had been taking a nap for about 17 years. When that started up the first time, it was an amazing thing. I think we both were just about in tears because it worked. We were amazed for ourselves being able to make it work, first of all. But it was the first time I had ever really heard of Ferrari V12 in person. I grew up in rural Ohio. Michael Yuck grew up around Augusta, Georgia, and we always had. I had a '57 Chevy and a GTO, and he had a '55 Chevy. That's what we knew. We'd never put hands on a Ferrari, and we made that work. And the first time we heard it run was an amazing thing. The other funny part about that is we got it up and running, let it warm. When we revved it up, it blew the guts out of the old mufflers and the resonators out of the mufflers out into the street behind out in the street in front of the townhouse that my wife and I were living in Alexandria, Virginia. So scared the hell out of us at first because we thought something broke. It just got louder and it even sounded better. So that was fun. But it's been an amazing story, and amazing to be part of the story of that car, even though it's not a multi-million-dollar car, but it's part of the family, and to see it get better and refine those things. We've had people help us, in recent years when we had enough money saved back up after going racing, but true artists with Ferraris, and there's just not much that sounds like or that you get to experience as an early Ferrari with that V12 and the V12 sounds.
Yeah, what makes a GTE special from other cars like?
Well, first and foremost, it sounds like a Ferrari, and it's got the early elements. I think when Pininfarina designed the car, at least for me, they were trying to create something that achieved the goals of having a car that would create revenue to allow Ferrari to keep racing. One, but they kept a lot of design elements and things from the early cars, the 250 GTE or 250 GTE GTs. I keep wanting to say GTE, and the early cars with that kind of iconic grille with the prancing horse in the middle. It had the sleek design of the roof. It wasn't kind of a clunky coupe. It still had a very sleek silhouette, but it encompassed the rear seats. And a lot of people, I think, compare it to the Aston Martin, the DB5s, DB4s, 5s, 6s, and that era. So that was Ferrari's, I guess, accomplishment in going after Aston Martin, but having rear seats and having all the sound, all the components that made Ferrari great at that point in time.
Do you drive it often?
As often as we can. We live here in South Carolina, and recently we don't take it out when it's this cold. Although we did have it out a few weeks ago and took it to another true artist that's going to do a few more things for us to get it ready to go to a couple of Concord events this year. But it was quite chilly, but it started up, pulled out the choke a little bit, 2 pumps on the gas pedal, fired it up on the second try, drove it out. We put it in the trailer, and we trailered it because it was up in the where we were going is up in the mountains. Yeah, we drive it, every chance we get. There's a local wine shop here, and we take it down there to have a glass of wine on a nice evening and things like that. Drive it around the roads here. We live outside of Greenville, South Carolina, and it's just a blast. Especially people don't know what it is. To see people, their reaction to it is kind of funny. They don't know what it is because, I mean, let's face it, there's maybe 250 or so in the world. So chances are nobody's seen that kind of car. So we, as you know, like to tell the story of the car. So if people approach us and want to learn about the car, we're happy to share the story. let people sit in the car if they'd like to sit in it, take pictures with it and things like that. So I think that's a critical part of having a car like that, is to share the story and share it, for young people like you that have an interest in cars, because that's the way the car hobby or passion or car guy sickness, whatever you want to call it, gets passed along to young guys like you that can perpetuate the great stories, the great cars, that I think are important for people to know about. So hats off to you for doing it. So that's why I'm happy to be on your podcast. So good on you.
What is one small detail that most people might not know about the car?
I could probably talk to you for an hour on that thing alone, because I can tell you, having been about as far into the car as you can go, there are nuances to these cars, and probably any early Ferrari, that people that don't know the cars would go, why would you do that? Or why is it that way? And, it's fascinating in a way, because you can see how the cars are designed, how they were made. I think a lot of things, when you're in the car, like the motor's out. And I literally, a year ago, we had GTM and Son here in the local area, which, by the way, that shop, they got the founder, Guy Trigot, and his son got their Ferrari sales and service certificates from Garage Francorchamps, signed by Jacques Swatters, who sold the car to my father-in-law. They are literally about 6 miles from my house, and my wife accuses me of buying this house here because they were close by. That's not true, by the way. So with the motor out and them going through the motor, and we researched all the clamps, all the finishes, the way it would have come from the factory. And it was just fascinating to discover why and how they did things, in the early 60s. But the other thing you learn, with the motor out, I had the car here, and I literally cleaned every corner of the engine bay with brushes, toothbrushes, anything I could to clean out every nook and cranny, because the motor had never been out of the car. So it was 60 years. So you can imagine, even if the car's been used at all, just it accumulates dirt and grime and things like that. But what you find out is, as elegant as the outside is, the inside is somewhat crude. A lot of it is handmade panels in aluminum, so they're not super smooth and super finished, like maybe a modern car would be. So there's a lot of, I'll call it, crudeness about the car, that if you look at it sitting there, that underneath you can see all those things. And it's just fascinating to me, being an engineering type, the way things got put together. They're just great cars. That's why telling the story, and if people get past the kind of shiny exterior, there's a lot of interesting things that were done then with these early Ferraris that I think people could appreciate. And you probably would, as a car guy. If I took you out to the garage and made you crawl under it and look at stuff, you'd probably go, I wonder why they did that. Or, man, that's, it's a Ferrari. Why would you have that way? So, it's fun, though. Makes it fun.
Well, that's very interesting, John. Thank you for your time. For the viewers, we're going to be having an episode 2 coming out in the following weeks. So stay tuned. I'm Brynn Patton, and that's John Kenney, and this has been the Exhaust Note Podcast.
Thank you.